Good day and welcome back to Mana Ministries, where we let the Bible interpret the Bible. So previously we looked at Daniel chapter 4. This time we're going to look at Daniel chapter 5, and especially this party that Belshazzar holds in his temple or in his palace. Now, just to keep in mind, this was a time of war, and up until that date, nobody was ever able to capture Babylon. It was a secure city. And some have tried in the past, but they were never able to capture the city. Now, Cyrus the Great, the Median and Persian king, wanted to capture Babylon. And in fact, at this time and this very night, he managed to do that. But we're going to look at the events leading up to that and what transpired at this party, in the palace of Belshazzar. Now we remember, they had the vessels of God brought up. These were the vessels that were used in the temple for service in the temple of God. And they had a party with these. They drank wine out of it. And there was a hand that appeared and it wrote, something on the wall. And such a great fear fell on Belshazzar that it is said that his knees knocked for fear. And, nobody could understand the writing, and eventually, they had Daniel called. But what's important to notice here, um, and it will be confirmed later on in the book of Daniel, especially from Daniel 7 onwards, is to notice the order that we can see here. So when they have this party, Belshazzar actually honors false gods, but he does it in a certain order. And we can read that in Daniel 5, verse 4. Let's read that. In fact, let's read from verse 3. Then they brought the vessels of gold that had been taken from the temple of the house of God, which had been in Jerusalem. And the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold, the gods of silver, the gods of bronze, of iron, of wood, and stone. So this is a very specific order. It goes like this: gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Now we'll learn later on, and we do remember from the statue of Nebuchadnezzar that actually symbolizes the different kingdoms. The head of gold, meaning the Babylonian empire. Then, silver speaks of the Persian empire, bronze, the Grecian empire, and so forth. So it's mentioned in a very specific order. And what we'll find is after this party, when the man Daniel comes there and gives his interpretation, something has happened. That order has in fact changed. And we know the story that, one of the concubines says, look, there's this man Daniel and he served your grandfather well, and, he's a man of wisdom and the spirit of the Most High God is within him. And Daniel comes and he gives him the interpretation. And then he says something, he says, look, you know of God. You know what happened to your grandfather Nebuchadnezzar, but still you chose to use his vessels. This very night, you have been weighed and measured and you've been found wanting. And this very night your kingdom will be taken away from you. So we know that this, in fact, did happen in the flesh, but it also represents a changing of kingdom in the principalities. That head of gold, that Assyrian principality, the principality with the name as the Assyrian, was changed that very night. And we can actually see this in Daniel's response. It's a small little detail, but when he responds, he says, you gave honor, and then he changes this order to the gods of silver, gold, bronze, and iron, and so on. So you can see now, all of a sudden, the silver is mentioned first, whereas previously it was the gold that was mentioned first. But Daniel changes that order, meaning in that moment, after the hand was writing these things on the wall, the kingdom was taken away from that principality. And that very night, Cyrus broke through Babylon. In fact, he had a dream, and this dream showed him that he must just dam up the river, upstream. And he did that, and the river stopped flowing, the river Euphrates, and his army merely marched through detected on the dry riverbank, and they took Babylon with relative ease and with no violence. Obviously, Belshazzar was killed that night, but there was no violence. It was almost a peaceful transition because they gained access like that. But in that moment, when the hand was writing on the wall, the principality, the Assyrian principality, that head of gold, lost his kingship. And he was second, and he wasn't first anymore. And Daniel knew this, and whether he knew this outright or whether he spoke through the Spirit of God, whether he prophesied, but he did change that order from silver, gold, bronze, and iron. So that's a clear indication of what actually happened there. We just see the fleshly part of it. We see, Belshazzar's knees knocking. But it wasn't just his knees, I'm sure. It was the whole principality that's changed. And God took away the kingdom. He overthrew that kingdom, and he gave the kingdom to a new principality. Now, later on, in Daniel, we'll learn about these principalities. In fact, that head of gold was one principality. When it came to the silver, to the Persians, it's in fact two principalities. It's the Medes and the Persians, so it's two, it's stronger. And then later on, we'll learn that the bronze was in fact four principalities, so it's a principle of growing, a kingdom becoming bigger. But it's important to see at that very moment, the principality as well as the flesh lost the kingdom. So next time we'll look closer at this new King Darius, and how he treats Daniel, and then also there's an important spiritual lesson in Daniel 6 that we can look at. Till next time, God bless.
Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button. Let us take you deeper into the revelations of God. Keep on watching.